6th was a government plot, and the video proves this. Jim Jordan is getting savaged by right-wingers, assaulted on Fox by Jesse Waters, buried by a former Chuck Grassley aide on Twitter, insulted by Epic Times TV. Or as the headline at Axios read, Jim Jordan scrambles amid claims weaponization probe is a dud.
Warriors!
Carlson did this, possibly sabotaging his own network's existence because he is a megalomaniac. And while a surprisingly large number of people in television news or commentary actually think that someday they will be president of this country, Scarborough, I think Tucker Carlson is the only one who believes that someday he will be this nation's Führer. I worked with him, as I mentioned, at MSNBC, and as a favor to an old friend who had been tasked to formulate some format for Carlson's new show, I served for 2 or 3 demo or pilot shows as Carlson's liberal foil in a discussion of topical issues. At some point, the former CNN president, who was then running MSNBC, Rick Kaplan, saw these demos and liked the interplay, probably because I was just saying whatever would get me off the stage the fastest so I could go back to my office and write Countdown. Kaplan approached me with an offer. He would tear up my contract and give me a new one with a big raise if I would do Countdown at 8 and stick around until 11 every night and co-host Carlson's show. It would be perfect, he said, because he could combine our initials and call the new show TKO. Well, that was this Rick Kaplan in a nutshell. The content of the show or its feasibility. I was already working myself sick trying to get Countdown above water. None of that mattered to him. What he was in love with was the title. TKO. It'd be perfect. Kaplan, who, as I have described here earlier, would later chase me around the studios, threatening to kill me because I had referred to blood in my mouth after a cancer scare, and he believed I had done so in order to sabotage the premiere of the next of his genius hires, Rita Cosby. Kaplan never forgave me for denying him his TKO. Honestly, after a lot of years to think about it, I think it was the best call because honestly, if I'd actually had to work with Tucker Carlson for more than about an hour in total in my life, I suspect
It's over!
I would not yet be out on parole.
Repeat offender.
Ultimately, Tucker Carlson did this, and we have to thank him again for doing this because in his little world of privilege, where whatever his shtick du jour, once a preppy bow tie, then being a pretend reasonable conservative looking for the middle, now a conspiracy freak theorist with a head tilt reminiscent of a dog being shown a card trick. Whatever he's tried, it's always worked before. He's always triumphed. Even after Jon Stewart shamed him and cut him up into little Tucker Carlson pieces and CNN fired him. And even after his mediocre ratings went down from there at MSNBC and he got fired again. And even after Fox finally hired him but relegated him for 7 years to weekend fill-ins, he has ultimately prevailed. The problem here isn't the risk that he didn't prevail with his audience. Duh. It's that last night, in essence, he testified in the Dominion Fox $1.6 billion defamation trial, and he testified for Dominion. And I know Rupert Murdoch. I have been fired personally by Rupert Murdoch. He's not going to like it. You know how I know? The video proves this.
Fuck.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's over!
Warriors, come out to play!
And threatens people who had the nerve to quote him saying what he said. The BBC reports Elon Musk needs 2 bodyguards to escort him to the bathroom, fulfilling a joke about a guy so stupid he couldn't relieve himself without help from a committee. And since we're talking about Fox and Disney and how Tucker Carlson helped the Dominion case last night, let's talk about the guy Murdoch already threw overboard in this case, Lou Dobbs, who is almost single-handedly responsible for the big break that started my TV career.
The Lord tells me he can get me out of this mess, but he's pretty sure you're fucked.
That's next. This is Countdown.
I'm as mad as hell.
Computer says no.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Orbit when he gets. This is Countdown with Keith Olbermann. Postscripts to the news, some headlines, some updates, some snark, some predictions. Dateline, the Michael Knowles scandal. The Glenn Quagmire lookalike doubled down on his call to eradicate transgenderism entirely. Entirely meaning everything to do with it, and transgendered people and the surgeons and the nurses and the counselors would have something to do with it. All this great flaming fraud on the Daily Wire indoctrination channel was concerned with was threatening more people who accused him of saying what he said. Quoting, the idea that I or anybody else called for trans
Indictment
to be eradicated, obviously a total lie. There are some news outlets that have not yet changed their headlines. I would recommend they do so. Another video of this Knowles turned up. It's less than a week old, and in it he specifically says you can't have a genocide of transgender people because, quote, they are not a legitimate category of being.
Don Jr.'s on coke.
Salt Lake City, Utah Senator Mike Lee. You may remember him from the plot to overturn the 2020 election and install Trump as dictator. Mike Lee has now struck out at 2 of the great issues of our time: the real victim in the Michael Knowles story and the barring of tennis player Novak Djokovic from this country. Lee says the real victim in the Knowles case is, of course, Knowles, and he's using that as a springboard to urge that the Supreme Court ruling from 1964, the one that protects news organizations from being sued even if they are honestly mistaken, New York Times v. Sullivan, should be overturned. It's the one that requires actual malice to establish defamation by a news outlet, and it basically guarantees, you know, the First Amendment. As to Djokovic, not admitted to this country because he's still not vaccinated, Lee has drawn the perfect parallel, at least in his mind, between Djokovic and drug cartels. Quoting the senator, to Djokovic, you're unvaxxed, so stay out. To people trafficked by drug cartels, you're unvaxxed and undocumented, so come on in. Secretary Mayorkas, you have this exactly backwards. Reverse. Imagine the reasoning at DHS. Djokovic is far less likely to bring fentanyl into the U.S. This is a U.S. senator who thinks like this. Thinks maybe kind of exaggeration. Senator, stick to what you're an expert in, insurrection. Oh, listen to me again. Mr. Glass Half Full, calling Mike Lee an expert in something.
This was my mind talking.
You foolish, stupid man.
Thank you, Nancy Faust. And Dateline Germany, the Adidas group, thinks it may have found a solution to its little problem of about $500 million in unsold, and it thinks pretty much unsellable, sneakers that it co-produced with Kanye West. Remember Kanye West? Adidas has been trying to sell it since he self-destructed, even going so far as to propose ripping off the labels and selling the shoes at TJ Maxx's as so-called zombie Yeezys. But a new idea has hit Adidas headquarters. Burn them. Burn them all. 10, 20 million pairs of shoes. Burn them. Burn them. It has not apparently occurred to anybody there. Give them to people in poorer countries? Or even, you know, sell them to people in poorer countries for 50 cents for a pair? We can't do that. That would be helpful. Just ahead, Lou Dobbs is in the news again with this latest Fox big lie crap. And the evidence that he was one of the lambs Rupert Murdoch sacrificed, which makes me laugh because after a career out of screwing others, it was Lou Dobbs' turn. Speaking of screwing, how his personal messy life literally started my TV career. Something good should have come of that. Next, first time for the daily roundup of the miscreants, morons, and Dunning-Kruger effect specimens who constitute today's worst persons in the world. The bronze, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak. He's that gee-whiz smiley guy who was the third premier of that country in the time it takes for a head of lettuce to go bad. Sunak is a gung-ho, innovation, business growth kind of annoying guy. And to prove that point yesterday, he tweeted a QR code, which led you to a press release with a bunch of enhanced reality words flying out of it in 3D. The problem was he tweeted it. And nearly everybody reads Twitter on their phones. So to scan the QR code, the PM just sent to your iOS, you'd need two phones. One to display the code and the other to scan it with. Well, that will increase phone sales at least. They'll always be in England. Maybe. Runner-up, now this is a coincidence, Boris Johnson, who was two prime ministers before Sunak, so that's like 3 weeks, and whose instability and inability to just follow the rules for 2 minutes forced him out of that office. Each prime minister, no matter how badly they end up, gets to nominate people for the so-called year-end honors list. Who's going to be a lord, and who's going to be a time lord, and who's getting an order of the garter, and who's getting an order of the garter snake. I don't know. All the other British titles I know are from Monty Python or The Goon Show, and they turned out to be jokes. Who's the new Viscount of the third disgusting Fusiliers, Gridpipe? Anyway, Boris Johnson has reportedly nominated 100 people for honors. The average is like 40. And one of the people he wants the king to make into a sir or a knight or something. Sir! One of the people is named Stanley Johnson. Well, that's a coincidence. Stanley Johnson. Stanley Johnson is Boris Johnson's father. The disgraced ex-prime minister wants them to knight his own father. But our winner is Elon Musk. This is not about his latest upgrade to Twitter, which caused it to crash yesterday because he apparently only has the one engineer now working for Twitter, and it's rumored that it's the guy's side hustle. The guy is actually a motorman on a San Francisco cable car line. This isn't about his tweet, "New Twitter is the source of truth," which leads to the question, so when is new Twitter, Elon? No, this is a report from the BBC about how abuse, particularly of women, including rape threats and death threats, has shot through the roof on Twitter under Musk. Musk dismissed that as, quote, trolls. But the aside at the end of the BBC piece is, I'll just read it. It's quoting a Twitter engineer who spoke anonymously to the BBC for fear of retribution. Quote, the level of disarray in Musk's view, is because Mr. Musk doesn't trust Twitter employees. He believes this lack of trust is betrayed by the level of security Mr. Musk surrounds himself with. Quote, wherever Musk goes in the office, there are at least 2 bodyguards, very bulky, tall, Hollywood movie-style bodyguards. Even when Musk goes to the restroom, Elon Musk needs bodyguards to escort him to and from the toilet. God number 1, you hold it. God number 2, you shake it. The paper towels, I meant. Elon, no wonder he brought his own sink with him to Twitter headquarters, Musk. Today's worst person in the world.
Yes, we're broadcasting this live.
During the
We
summer
are
of
not.
2020,
Dickneck
some
Dropshop.
Americans suspected
We are not.
had secretly infiltrated the racial justice demonstrations.
What the fuck?
Computer
Yeah,
says
fuck.
no.
They were right.
So, what's the symbology there?
Indicriminate people, you can imagine.
This was my mind talking.
Well, I want to hear this, and if you can just
Sick
go,
bastard.
you could just put on headphones because I'm listening to this shit.
Yeah, I'm listening to it.
I'm listening to Keith Olbermann. I don't know. We could get fucking copyright strike.
Maybe. Satire.
I don't know. Keith Olbermann would be like, fuck, they're spouting my shit.
You dick!
They're putting my shit out there?
Yeah, on her live.
Oh my god, these are like,
They're Nazis.
they're hippies from Michigan and they're putting my shit out on their thing. Like,
It might happen.
we love Keith Olbermann.
Yes, we do.
All you gotta say
If they
is
copyright,
Hunter
I'm
Biden's
listening to it. Fuck
laptop.
you, man.
Still ahead on
Hunter
Countdown,
Biden's
everybody has some
laptop.
kind of career origin story. And mine is, I got my start in TV because Lou Dobbs was rumored to be stepping out on his wife. That Lou Dobbs. Crazy old, you know how old he is? He's 206, Lou Dobbs, who was then, in 1981, the centerpiece of CNN's business department. Next. First, in each edition of Countdown, we feature a dog in need. You can help. Every dog has its day. First, the really good news. The Cane Corso brothers on the death watch in New York yesterday, Brooklyn and Butter, they have been saved. Thank you for your help. Now to the slaughter pen in Riverside, California, where August, who is a shepherd beagle mix with haunting eyes, has been in the pound for a month. He's 3 years old. He's about 35 pounds. He has kennel stress.
Tony!
He needs a foster or adopter or our pledges to help a rescue pull him out. If you can pledge, please reply to my tweets about August. You can see a video of him there. And if you can retweet August, please do so. I thank you, and August thanks you. I went to work at Cable News Network, CNN, then just starting its second year on the air on the morning of Monday, August 3rd, 1981, because Lou Dobbs was rumored to be stepping out on his wife. On my first day, my first interview was with Joe Torre, who is still a friend. On my first day, I learned you have to take the lavalier microphone off your lapel before you walk away from the camera. And on my first day, I learned that if you are videotaping near airport radar, the cameraman has to take steps to protect the camera, often with tin foil. Otherwise, almost everything you record will have radar blips embedded into it and be unusable. And I learned all this all because Lou Dobbs was rumored to be stepping out on his wife. So I was a radio sportscaster in 1981, 22 years old, and having already moved from the United Press International Network, which I've mentioned before, where my boss was, as I've also mentioned before, Sam Rosen, who has been the play-by-play man of the New York Rangers for most of the 41 years since. And I moved from working for him to the much better paying RKO radio network, where my boss
Send you
was
into full
Charlie
coronary
Stone, who
meltdown.
still does play-by-play of the Los Angeles Dodgers games. But 2 years into my radio career, I had almost topped...
Repeat offender.
My ambitions had always been to do TV anyway. I just wasn't sure how to do it. Turned out, my career was not a question of my doing it. It was a question of Lou Dobbs doing it. My alma mater, Cornell University, had one of the best student radio stations in the world. But the entire university offered one television course, and to take it, you had to rent the camera for $50 an hour, and it was black and white, and you needed 3 guys to lift it. So as well as I had done starting in network radio in New York straight out of college, I was somewhat stymied re-TV. One local news director offered me the chance to have a kind of audition at his station, but that never worked out. The Lou Dobbs thing worked out. I actually interviewed with Cable News Network twice. Once in April 1980 when they were not on the air yet, and I saw no reason they ever would be, because the New York Bureau consisted of 1 coffee table, 1 coffee machine, 1 stairwell, 1 unisex bathroom, and 1 staffer, the bureau chief, Mary Alice Williams. Plus, the day I
Shut up!
CNN
Shut up!
Bill McKay
Shut up!
from Atlanta was visiting, so it was technically 2 staffers. After a long year, my phone rang one day and McPhail asked me to fill in for 2 weeks, for their New York sports reporter. She was going on vacation August 3rd, sooner, McPhail added, if the baseball strike ended before then. Her name was Debbie Segura, and all I knew was vacation. Turned out it was part vacation, part get out of town quickly. Very, very quickly. See, when CNN started, it wasn't just news and commentary and opinion shows. There was a half-hour business show every night and a half-hour sportscast at 7:30 and another one at 11 and a fashion program and hourly stock reports and meteorologists and short sportscasts. And the business anchor based in the New York bureau in the World Trade Center was Lou Dobbs. And as the producer they had sent up to work with me, Phil Griffin, later the president of MSNBC, explained to me when we got in the car to go out to Shea Stadium to interview all those Mets guys 42 years ago. Lou Dobbs was rumored to be stepping out on his wife with the CNN New York sports reporter Debbie. And Mrs. Dobbs had found out, and there was even another rumor there was somebody else who also worked in the CNN New York bureau, and thus Bill McPhail's hurried call asking me to fill in for her for 2 weeks in 2 weeks because she was going on, quote, vacation, unquote. Dobbs and the first Mrs. Dobbs eventually split, but apparently the ill will persisted. Everybody decided it would be better off for all concerned if Dobbs and Debbie Segura, or as she was then called behind her back, Debbie Does Dobbs, if all of them and most of the New York Bureau business staff moved to CNN headquarters in Atlanta. This left New York without a sports reporter, and they tried another one of the Atlanta anchors for a while, but they kept giving him extra vacation time, so they would have to bring me in freelance every month. And finally, the following March, they offered me the job full-time.
I kept journals.
I've earned an honest paycheck since. And I mean that in two ways. They were paying me $500 a week, which was about 40% less than what I made for like 3 days a week in radio. I pointed this out acceptingly. I was learning how to do TV while on TV and getting paid for it. And that's when they told me that $500 a week was already more than they were paying Debbie Segura or the guy who was their reporter in Los Angeles. And then Bill McPhail, the president, called and offered me a contract for $25 grand. And I said, wait, that's less. Why would I take less? Is there health insurance or something? And he said, no, there's just security. And I said, I'd rather have the $1,000 you just cut out of my salary. And they found it somewhere, but they always reminded me how generous they'd been and how many meetings they'd had to have just to get me the $1,000 back. I didn't have to do much with Dobbs in New York, but there is something about TV. Either it's a really small world or the people in it will do anything to stay in it. I might be an example of the latter. When Dobbs moved to Atlanta, the guy who stepped up to become CNN's #1 business reporter in New York was named Stuart Varney, and he was great to me. One night, our sports producer in Atlanta called up around 5 and said, congratulations, you get to do live. And I said, I have no idea how to read a teleprompter. And she said, better learn fast, click. And I told Stu, and he taught me how to use a teleprompter in like 10 minutes. And I was always grateful. And then he had some sort of religious conversion or a... And he's still one of the most virulent
This was my mind.
I am Dark Nihilus.
Debbie's TV career ended not long after, as mine began.
Kinda makes me feel like
She
river
ran into
dancing.
horses, equestrian stuff. Ultimately, she and Dobbs made it back to the New York bureau. I worked with him again in 2001-2. He deteriorated into a running joke, spewing anti-immigrant and anti-Latino bile, while she raised their family in New Jersey, and the rest of us marveled that Lou and his Latino family made millions off his anti-Latino bile. Jersey was where Debbie Segura Dobbs was on Tuesday, January 20th.
Entertainment. Check out all the shows and movies you can watch with Xfinity Flex. No strings attached.
You dick!
On the season 2 premiere of Yellow Jackets from Showtime. Crack open the history vault and dig into shows
Inconsistently liked. Tom.
The fuck just happened?
Save an extra 10%.com. Sports betting can be fun.
Hale, who are the Countdown musical directors, produced by TKO Brothers, is absolutely the way they do it at every hospital.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Do a cameo in an Adam Sandler golf movie, which I suppose was Happy Gilmore. And I didn't want to try to fly to Chicago and then change for Vancouver.
Wow,
after
stop.
getting the 2 hours from the middle.
Gambling can be fun.
Susan, who has been the play-by-play man of the New York Rangers. Turned out it was part vacations, was rumored to be stepping out on his wife with... Wow. A reporter in New York was named Stuart Varney.
Who the fuck do you think you're talking to?
Sports producer in Atlanta called up around 5 and said, "Congratulations, you get to do a commentary on the 7 tonight." And I croaked, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, you'll do it live." And I said, "I have no idea how to read a teleprompter." And she said, "Better learn fast." Click. And I told Stu, and he taught me how to use a teleprompter in like 10 minutes. And I was always grateful. And then he had some sort of religious conversion, or he hit his head on something, or both. And he's still one of the most virulent fascists on Fox News. Anyway, Dobbs and Debbie got married, and Lou settled in, and as part of the deal, Debbie Segura Dobbs became a CNN sports anchor in Atlanta.
Don Jr.'s on coke.
While she could get through those short 3 or 4 minute sports updates she used to do in New York, which I inherited, during the longer half-hour and hour-long shows, she could not read the prompter to save her life. About 2 months
Who the fuck said that?
Came the night she got so lost in the teleprompter that about 20 minutes in, she got up and left the studio. Her boss, by this point my boss, Bill
TOPLESS,
off the longer shows and return her to doing those 3-minute updates in the middle of the afternoon. She was secretly relieved. Her husband, Lou Dobbs, who started his career because he was rumored to be stepping out on his first
it's an adult human female.
He was not relieved. He promptly went into Bill McPhail's office and challenged him to a fist fight. I have looked this up on the internet.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
This happened. Lou Dobbs was 36 years old, and Bill McPhail was 61. Debbie's TV career ended not long after.
All you gotta say